Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Sean McEwen and I'm the publisher of Inside Aging, where this is our second Winners Forum that we've run actually. So very pleased to be continuing this, and we've had a pretty good reception to the last one. So these will be an ongoing, probably every second month we'll have these as a regular fixture. Maybe just before I introduce the speakers, I might just give everybody a little bit of a background to the awards, and essentially that's why we're here. We're here to hear from people that have won or have been a runner-up in the Future of Aging Awards. So the awards have been around for 4 years now, so they're quite well established, and their role is to very much recognise achievement and best practice in the context of aged care services. And that includes people. So we do have a category for emerging leader, which we introduced last year. But essentially the awards recognise achievement, as I said, and the robust nature of the judging process allows us to really, I suppose, uncover the true leaders when it comes to solutions, services in aged care, and those services, if you like, are very much supporting ageing Australians to live their life better. So we look for things like, and these are the category, if you like, the category criteria that we look for. It's leadership and innovation, collaboration and engagement, evidence of success, and also whether the product solution is scalable and sustainable. So we're not looking for blue sky thinking of something that might be possible one day. It has to be available today. And it has to be scalable to be rolled out across multiple facilities across Australia, throughout regions. And each of the entries you've seen today, or you will see today, have got that. So they've been judged by a team of 5 or 6 judges, and those judges rank each of the entries on that criteria I just mentioned, and we tally up the scores from each of the 5. I think last year we had 6 judges, this year it's 5. So each of those judges gives a score, we tally them up. So we get a pretty good, look at who's doing good work, and we think the results speak for themselves. So to introduce, just to introduce the people speaking today, we've got, this is the order of presentation. So we've got Lucy Fenwick from Zipline, and we've got Kerryn Sakkers from Amana Living. Welcome to you both. And we've also got Colin Pudsey from SilVR Adventures and Jamie McIntyre from Australian Red Cross. So the format is very much a presentation, a 10-minute presentation from each of these people with their client who can speak to the outcomes being achieved. If you have questions, please just type them into the question box at the bottom of the page, and we'll get to those at the end of the session. So I'll moderate the Q&A at the end. So put your questions in and we'll answer them. And this is probably a good chance for anybody on the call to really ask direct questions of the providers as well, who can speak to the outcomes, but also how they roll these solutions out. So you can ask questions about any difficulties they may have had, the outcomes, how it maybe improve their business, and really, perhaps even the impact on residents with respect to their care. So feel free to ask those questions. So I might pass on to our first presenters, Lucy and Kerryn, if you would like to start. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you very much for Inside Aging for having us along today. I will just share my slides. So my name's Lucy, I'm from Zipline, and we are a visitor management and compliance solution for both the aged care and the hospital space. And I'm joined by Kerryn today, and we're going to have a chat through how Amana Living approached some of the challenges throughout COVID, and how technology helped them address those challenges. So with that, I'd love to pass over to Kerryn to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more around Amana Living.
Thanks, Lucy. I'm Kerryn Sakkers. Thanks for having me here. So I started at Amana Living in November 2021, and my role was as care systems administrator. So I looked after a couple of the applications and systems that we use in residential care and home care, and one of those is Zipline. And my role has now merged into the IT team, and I'm now the corporate application support specialist. So still looking after the same applications. And previous to that, I worked at Juniper as the administration team leader for home and community care.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kerryn, and congratulations on the new role. Very exciting. So I'd love to know a little bit more around some of the challenges that you faced throughout COVID. We know the past 2 years have been challenging across all industries, but particularly the aged care space. So it would be great if you could tell us a little bit around your experience, both at Amana Living and at Juniper before that.
Yeah, sure. So there's, as you said, across all industries, there's a lot of changes and challenges that came from 2020, and we're still facing them now. So the first ones that came were the mandates for vaccinations, and the flu vaccination first, and then COVID vaccinations. And that not only coming across for staff, but for visitors, contractors and volunteers to our facilities as well. And then from there, also, we had all the health declaration forms and contact tracing forms that all our staff and visitors had to complete when coming to an office or a facility or a day club, along with social distancing in all of those places as well. We also then saw an increased focus on infection control. So not only more cleaning, and making sure that we weren't cross-contaminating, but also making sure that cross-contamination wasn't happening between office-based staff and then staff at our client or resident-facing staff. So trying to reduce that risk of people that were client-facing from coming into contact with people that might have COVID. Compliance of all the government regulations for visitors and entry into facilities, exposures, outbreaks, rat testing and contact tracing when it came down to it, when the government's no longer doing contact tracing at the moment, but that falls on us as an organisation.
It sounds like it was a huge burden on you and your team, both from all of the extra cleaning, but also a lot of administrative burden, it sounds like. Could you maybe tell us a bit more around the impact that had on the staff at Amana Living?
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest impact in an admin burden sense was definitely the extra paper and contact tracing registers and health declarations that came in. We saw that not only were we then printing a whole lot more paper, and then we had these forms that were filled out by people, and how long do we keep them for, and where do we keep them, and do we store them electronically, do we keep them in a file, when do we archive them, what do we do with them after the 6 or 8 week period, and then again constantly changing. So the regions of exposure, and do we list all of those regions out and have people sign that they have not been to those regions when they're entering a facility, so that we keep our residents and clients as safe as possible. So there was that extra admin burden on all of those paper registers and keeping them up to date and keeping them there. But then also along with that is, where do you put them? So then you have these spaces in, our welcome areas, whether it be a reception area or, the area that somebody first walks into as they walk into a facility. And now we've got an extra desk there or something there that we can store all these paper documents on. So that was definitely one of our biggest burdens. Obviously, as well, is cost, and the cost of COVID just increased everything, more cleaning, more printing of documents, and then all of that management that comes with PPE and exposures and outbreaks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you had to implement a lot of changes as a result of that and pivot quite quickly. I'd love to know a bit more around how Amana Living approached implementing some of those regulatory changes. I know that there's always lots of regulation in the aged care space, but I think we've seen over COVID-19, it just became exponential and changed so quickly. So how did you guys cope with that?
Yeah, so Amana Living already had Zipline in place when I started. And as we came to December, January, we could see what was happening with Omicron on the East Coast, and then we knew that there was a date for the borders to open. So Amana Living pivoted into a space of COVID preparedness and preparing our plans based on what we were seeing with the Omicron virus. And a part of that was understanding that there'd be rats coming in to play, and also that contact tracing would get to a point where the government could no longer keep up to date, and that would fall on our organisations. Yeah. So what we looked into with Zipline was staff check-in, and we implemented the staff check-in process so that we were ready to be able to do electronic contact tracing and remove that burden of having to go through pieces of paper and try and figure out who's been in contact and at what stages and in what facilities. So by starting to do the staff check-in and implementing that, we then had complete contact tracing of all our visitors, contractors, volunteers and staff, all in the one place on demand with a click of a button, which was fantastic. And the rats as well. So understanding that there would be a requirement to have a negative rat to enter a facility. And that started for us as a 3 daily rat, and then eventually became a daily rat to enter a facility. So being able to actually upload that into Zipline gave us the ability to be agile and move quickly in that space.
Yeah, and I suppose because in WA you were in an interesting position compared to some of the other states, that you could get a little bit ahead of the curve and start implementing these processes beforehand. It's quite difficult to compare. But do you feel like you've seen any reduction in community transmission or the ability to kind of isolate those cases as a result of being so prepared?
Yeah, definitely. We had a positive experience at Amana Living where we had our plans in place and we had some exposures, and we were able to make sure that those plans were robust before we ended up with an outbreak at a site. And we can commend that to our staff following process and doing the right thing with their following PPE and health and hygiene practices. And on top of that, then also their rats as well. And we had staff exposures at sites, but then they didn't become outbreaks because our staff were doing the right thing. But having those rats in place and already readily available in WA, which we didn't see on the East Coast, definitely had an impact in being able to alert us when somebody was positive, and then they would go into their, following the WA government guidelines as to isolating, etc. But identifying when somebody is positive early on and quickly, and therefore being able to quickly clean the facility, quickly do some rats with the residents and check that everybody's okay.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like a lot of kind of the ability to do that was because your staff were so good at following the process. How did they find adopting a new technology and kind of digitizing the manual way that you were doing things before?
Yeah, so it was a really great process. We started with some pilot sites, and we created a QR code to make it nice and easy for staff to just grab their mobile phone, scan the QR code, and it would take them to the Zipline web link for staff check-in. And so I went to site for the 7 o'clock changeover of staff and stayed through to the 8 and 9 o'clock staff arriving, and then also the 3 o'clock shift as well. So I was able to be there and help them walk through the process. And the great thing was that we already we matched the questions in the electronic version on Zipline to the paper documents. And so the staff knew that the flow was going to be very similar, but they did it on their own phone. And also the staff had seen the visitors checking in when they got to site, so they understood what Zipline was. But the great thing was having staff that are more technologically challenged saying, oh, that was easier than I thought. And they got through it really well.
Good to hear.
Yeah, it was really, really good to hear. And so we did have people step up to be champions and be able to help other staff as they came on board. But it was really great to hear how quick and easy it was.
Have you had a chance to see any of the other personas go through the check-in process at any site, so visitors and contractors?
Yeah, so I got the opportunity to go to our Kalgoorlie site just as we were introducing RATs for visitors. And it was a really great experience to be up there at that time and be able to help the admin staff. We were short on the ground with admin staff at the time. So to be able to help them, help the visitors through that extra step in their check-in flow. And the really great thing was that all the visitors were more than willing and more than happy to do it because they wanted to keep their loved ones safe. But be able to see them easily be able to do a RAT, sit and wait in the reception area while it processed, do their normal check-in flow on Zipline that they were used to, and then just that extra step of holding up their RAT evidence, letting it take a photo of them standing there with it, and then continue on with their check-in. So it was really nice to see that we could quickly and easily see that our visitors were being compliant. We could get evidence of that, and it was not a burdensome process for the admin staff or the visitors that were arriving.
Great. I haven't been timekeeping, and I know we've only got 10 minutes, so I will ask one final question before I hand back to Sean, but I would love to know what's your plans looking ahead with Zipline? And I know that Amana Living is going through a bit of a technology transformation more broadly, so it'd be good to know, yeah, what the future holds.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so the journey so far with Zipline has been a nice journey for me. And so we already have Zipline in our office spaces so that the staff can check in, and now the visitors can check in also. So as you can imagine, the visitor flow for and check-in process for an office is a little bit different to a residential facility. We require different things. We, have a visitor coming to meet a staff member. So having a visitor management system that alerts that staff member when their visitor arrives is really great. And that's what we're looking for. So we're in a discovery process with Zipline at the moment to see what we can do to develop that kind of side of the software. Also, we've got our training institute where we have students come, and they come for different courses and at different times in the day. So being able to have Zipline not only check in, but as an attendance record as well for what classes their students are coming to. So we're on a bit of discovery with that. There's also a few other elements and contractor compliance that we're looking into. So yeah, but we're really wanting to go on a discovery journey of what applications we can use to reduce admin burden in the future, so that we can be more client facing, more staff facing, take those resources that are admin burdensome at the moment and redeploy them to be assisting the people that we're here for, which is our clients and our residents.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's great for us to have a customer like Amana Living, which is so forward thinking. I think all of the new features that we've brought out in Zipline have always been through co-collaboration with our customers. So very excited to go on that journey with you. Well, thanks very much, Kerryn. And with that, I will hand back over to Sean.
Thank you
very much for listening.
Thanks, Kerryn, and thanks, Lucy. That was very interesting. So our next presenters are Jamie McIntyre. Jamie is with Australian Red Cross in far north New South Wales. Welcome, Jamie. And we also have Colin Pudsey from SilVR Adventures, who I'm sure many people on the webinar are familiar with, Colin also produces the Aged Care Enrichment podcast that you may have listened to. So over to you, Colin, to lead this. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. Hello, everyone. So what I thought I'd do is I'd just fill you in a little bit about SilVR Adventures and what we do, and then hand over to Jamie, and he can talk more about sort of practical application on the ground with residents and experiences and that kind of stuff. So I'll just open my screen to share. All right, so my name's Colin Pudsey. I'm the founder of SilVR Adventures, and everything that we do, our purpose is all about improving the lives of older adults, particularly using virtual reality to reduce feelings of isolation and loneliness among the elderly. Now, what we're trying to address are really not just problems in Australia, but global problems. So we're talking about things with an aging population, as we all know, the shift towards older adults. When we talk about loneliness, this is linked to heart disease, depression, cognitive decline, and even death. Isolation was a huge problem even before COVID. So even before restrictions and lockdowns, over 50% of older adults would have experienced feelings of isolation and loneliness. And then how that can actually increase the risk of things like dementia. So older people who are lonely and isolated are at much higher risk of developing dementia. Now, we'll talk about how we're solving that. With virtual reality, it's already a proven treatment for anxiety, for pain, for PTSD. We're looking to increase socialization among residents. So this is really about enriching interactions and fostering meaningful engagement. We want to help stimulate memories, and studies around the world have shown that VR can boost the mood of seniors and also improve memory impairment. And almost most importantly for us, the low-hanging fruit stuff is about putting smiles on faces. So we've already clocked over 2,000 shared and meaningful virtual reality sessions, group sessions with older adults. And among those sessions, we've actually managed to demonstrate a 40% uplift in their general happiness among those participants. So we're growing rapidly, and we're really validating the proof that the virtual reality can really improve the quality of life for a lot of residents. And we talk about our vision. Well, it's a world without barriers for our elders, where their needs are not only met, but they're exceeded using VR. So if I just show you some samples of stuff that we've been doing in the past 2 years. The first is looking to bring the world to care recipients. So this might be like bucket list items where they've always wanted to visit, perhaps never thought they...
Oh, this place is phenomenal. We are in the Sistine Chapel, inside the Palace of the Vatican, and just look at those artworks. These are some of the most well-known artworks in the world, especially the ones directly above us.
We also focused on facilitating experiences. So this is taking people to special times and places in their lives to bring a lot of joy.
Hello, darling. That looks so real.
Oh, here comes some new characters.
Yeah, oh, it's brilliant, boy.
And we also have an integration with Google Earth. So this is the ability to revisit places of personal significance, childhood homes, wedding venues, that kind of thing.
Your aunt lived in the house on the right, and your father built this house where you were born. Amazing. When was the last time you were at this house?
Oh, here comes some new characters.
Yeah, oh, it's brilliant, boy.
10 years ago. Wow. Does it bring back some special memories today? Very good. Amazing. You got to take all your friends today.
Now, if we look at what's next for us, what we are aiming to do with our new concept is to really wrap all of this up into what we're calling a personal VR space. And this is filled with meaningful experiences and the ability to match those experiences to an individual's identity, to their culture, to their life experiences. So I'll just show you a very quick clip of this with our new concept of things.
Your aunt lived in the house on the right, and your father built this house.
Enjoyed looking at the wildlife.
Your aunt lived in the house on the right, and your father built this house.
only had one of those headpieces, she wouldn't give it back.
Sorry about my video playback buttons there. So really what we're talking about is using virtual reality for improving well-being. We'll come back to our value proposition about meaningful experiences, enrichment, and reducing those feelings of loneliness and isolation, ultimately bringing joy. And the framework we look to follow is actually these domains of well-being established by the Eden Alternative, and how this framework can be used to really align with our VR solution. So if we're talking about identity, we've got the largest library of VR content to really be able to match those experiences to those identities. We talk about connectedness. We've got shared group experiences. So this is multiple residents going on the same journey at the same time. With autonomy, we have different virtual reality environments available, and participants can have their own conversations in those environments. With growth, it can be really an educational tool, new experiences, understanding new cultures, new places, lots of educational content throughout the program. With meaning, we have a lot of spiritual and cultural experiences. So as an example, we work with one of the largest Catholic providers in Australia. We built a kind of faith-based pilgrimage, a tour of the Holy Land, really powerful for residents that are faith-based or that go on that journey together. And then obviously on the security side, we provide full training support, and safety is a #1 priority too. There's a link on our website to download a full white paper to do with VR and wellbeing, if that's of interest to anyone here. Just briefly how this works. We're focused on sophisticated tech, but making it very easy to use. We want to empower the care team with content and tools and training, as I say, to match these experiences to individuals' identities. And how it works very simply is the carer would open the program on their tablet or on their laptop. They'll choose from our library of content. Could be a tour around the world, could be some content specifically for higher care needs. They'll open the program on the headsets and connect them, and then away they go and they start the session. So we're continuously committed to developing our solution. Just recently, a few months ago, we introduced the fact that there's actually no Wi-Fi data required to operate anything anymore. So if you're in a region where Wi-Fi has been an issue, that wouldn't be any problem for the solution. As I say, we've got the largest VR content library available for older adults. We're continuously improving the user friendliness of everything for carers, and developed a whole host of resources and engagement tools to help carers make this not only really desirable, but make it very sticky so people want to come back for more. We're really proud of what we've achieved so far. Obviously, winning this award in 2020 was a huge deal because we were still very new as a company. Since then, we've gone on to win a few other awards. We've completed multiple accelerator programs and working with in talks with 7 different universities at the moment. We've been featured pretty significantly in the press. One thing I did want to mention, what Sean mentioned at the start, was our Aged Care Enrichment podcast. We're really proud of that. It started as a bit of a passion project, but really we're looking to help transform the industry with like a valuable free resource. We've welcomed international, local CEOs, authors, experts, advocates, TV personalities, and academics. We've got 100 episodes in our back catalogue at the moment. We're in the top 10% of podcasts globally. We're in the top 50 on Apple Podcasts for mental health. So that's kind of gone bananas. And if you've not checked it out and you work within the industry, I'd really recommend that you have a look for it at Spotify or Apple or wherever you get your podcasts from. We've just actually launched a second weekly news show, which is called Who Cares? And that features a couple of industry experts that some people might know. And obviously anyone who's on the webinar today, if you're looking at partnering with us, we're operating with the best, most innovative care providers in aged and disability care, home care, retirement living, hospitals. And as you can see on there, one we're really proud to work with is the Australian Red Cross. And that's where Jamie's been invited from today. And I'd love to hand over to Jamie and let him just tell you about his experiences using the solution with older adults across multiple care homes. Over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Colin. Yeah, as Colin said, Jamie McIntyre with Australian Red Cross and Tweed Heads. When I first started with Red Cross, we got a bit of extra funding as part of COVID. And the boss said, spend it. She said, how about VR? And my first thought was, I'm not putting seniors on roller coasters, because that's what everyone thinks it is. And I get a feed. I got linked up for a feed. And one of the first things mentioned was SilVR. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like what we need. So I dug in further, went and did a session with St. Joseph's in Lismore, who had the Generation 1 kit. We had no link with them, but they actually moved their training session. They moved the day they did it so I could go there and do it with them. So that was amazing to see someone actually using it. We're quite unique for Colin because we take it to places. So I've got 17 facilities I take it to, not in one spot. And at first it made it a little bit difficult because, like Colin said, it was very Wi-Fi based and it took a bit to set up. It got reconfigured over Christmas and it's now fantastic. I've run sessions at Raffles, who are part of Mackenzie's. I was at Bupa Pottsville last week and I did one at Ferris Wayman Bay as well. And I'm out to Moolumbar next week with the Wi-Fi version. I couldn't have gone to Moolumbar. And yeah, I'm doing that on Monday. So as I said before this, my Thursdays are booked out for the next 2 months because as soon as everyone finds out about this, they want in. The session I did at Bupa Pottsville just last week, I had 18 residents and it was actually International Nurses Day. So all of the staff came in from the director down and everyone was throwing the headsets on. It was just, and the feedback is just amazing. One lady kept taking the headset off and saying, how have you done this? How much work have you done on this? This is amazing. She's saying, she's in an aged care home where she probably won't leave, but she's saying, I'm saving to go or want to go to these places. So to be able to go there and give her that experience, it's just amazing. And to be able to spread it across so many people. And we're using it as an in as well. With COVID, sometimes we can't get into facilities. We're doing this as part of their activity session. So we're still getting in and connecting with residents. So it's just been amazing. And the support from Colin as well. You would have heard the voiceover there in Colin's videos. I think it's Ash, isn't it, Colin, who does the voiceovers? He's got a very moderated voice. It's very senior friendly. And with the new software, you can see where they're looking. So if someone's sort of wandering away and Ash is saying, if you look to your left, you can go grab and say, hey, look around here, you'll see this. And you can see the heads move, or you can see if they're falling asleep. But even the sessions where we have a lot of people, we've only got 5 headsets and there's 5 in Lambton. They're taking them off and passing them around. They're sharing the experience. So yeah, it's just been absolutely amazing. And like I said, the support from Colin, yeah, it's just a wonderful thing to be involved in.
I might just jump in here now, guys. That sounds like a good way to finish the last presentation. So thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Colin. If all the other presenters can turn their camera and microphone on, we'll open up the Q&A and we'll spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes just answering some questions that we have here. There's a couple of questions here that I'll start with. And Jamie, it might be you that continues to maybe speak for a bit longer, because one of the questions is directed straight at you. It's with engaging people from diverse backgrounds, so people that were maybe born overseas and in aged care, about 30%, I think research shows about 30% of people in aged care were born overseas. Are you finding that, for example, somebody from an Italian background or the Middle East or wherever are naturally asking for an experience that would involve a trip to, say, their home country?
The good thing about it, the ones I've done so far, I've used the introduction because it does cover a bit of everything. And for an example, at Ferris Wayman Bay, we had a gentleman there from Holland, and I think he left when he was 5, and it starts off in a field of tulips. And like, he pretty much had tears in his eyes. He was just in awe. And it continues on like that. And like, the introduction has a bit of everything. It even has cows. Cows come up with the camera. So a lot of people around here have come in from rural backgrounds. And yeah, the oohs and ahs when the cows come, because the cows come right up the camera, they're pretty much underneath you. So yeah, the introduction's great. And then you can specialize later on. And they also have the virtual reality where you have teas that are tied in with the session. So you may say take them to Egypt and then you have an Egyptian-based tea afterwards as part of an experience thing. Or I've spoken to facilities too about doing, say, a tour to Japan, and then they can do sushi sessions, making or eating afterwards. So you can tie stuff in. Because I'm working with the activity staff, yeah, it's good to be able to sort of spitball stuff, and a lot of it's already coming from SilVR anyway with their activity packs.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. This is probably a question for you, Lucy, with Zipline. I think we had a story a couple of years ago following your win in the Future of Aging Awards, and it talked about a temperature check aspect of the product. I mean, can you tell us a bit more about that? Because obviously, during COVID, and not just that, we're in flu season now. I mean, is the temperature check a key element that you highlight with providers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the kiosks, which you can see behind me in my background, are thermal imaging kiosks. So rather than having a staff member who needs to stand there with a handheld temperature device, which obviously difficult with social distancing, and they're also not very accurate, they can stand up to this kiosk before they check in. And that's got 10 different facial nodes, which it uses to accurately take the temperature of someone who's checking in. So kind of reducing the risk and also meaning it's much more accurate. And if it does flag that someone is got a high temperature, then it will then kick off a workflow to alert a staff member that they need to sort of step in and triage accordingly, depending on what the process is for that aged care organisation.
Great, thanks. And Kerryn, maybe from your point of view, you're at the coalface using this. I mean, what does that do to admissions with respect to visitors, but also family members? When I say visitors, I'm talking about family members, but contractors that are coming in to provide a service. I mean, how does that work for you on the ground?
Yeah, so like Lucy was saying, it really reduces that administrational burden of a receptionist having to walk around their desk into the front space to be able to take a handheld probe and take the temperature of a visitor that's coming, hoping that that machine that they're using is accurate. And so instead, it's a self-service. You walk up to it, stand in front of it, it detects your temperature and reads it out to you. So even with our changeover to staff checking in through their mobile device, for me, it's such a quick and easy process. I get out of my car, I start my check-in as I'm walking in towards the building. I walk in, I have my temperature read, it tells me what degrees it is, and I punch that into my check-in and keep walking. So, there's no, it reduces that infection risk as well, because nobody's touching the handheld device and pieces of paper where they have to write it down. So yeah, it's really good.
Great, thanks. Colin, I might just go to you. There's a question I've got here, and it does tie back to something you covered in your presentation with respect to the personal experiences and how they can be tailored to suit people's unique background or desires, or just tell us a bit. How do you do that? If you've got somebody from, say, Italy and you want to make something very personable for them, how would you do that?
Yeah, so that new concept we're working on at this stage, I guess the configuration of it is manual, but the way we want to develop that on our roadmap is to be a bit more automatic and make it so that carers can, gather a certain set of information and then populate that area and then, customize it as they wish as well. So ultimately, this all comes from what we found from working with customers and feedback loops about how the solution works best. It's not Netflix just to kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. We want to give all of the technical knowledge and the tools to the carers, but it's really important that they bring, like I say, the knowledge of the individuals and their identities, and then you match those two worlds together and you really, create some serious magic. So so that aspect of the personal VR spaces is what we're working on at the moment, and we'll formally launch in the next couple of months. But yeah, it really comes down to that point of being very meaningful and understanding the individuals who are going to be going on these experiences, and the ability to share them either with family members, carers, fellow residents, and to do those journeys together.
I noticed in your presentation you had, I think, a picture of somebody's home that they were born in. Are you literally picking up people's photographs, family photographs, maybe? Is that how you collate some of this information?
So we have an integration with Google Earth where you can pretty much find anywhere on there. And then, if a person's got an address that's meaningful to them, whether it's a childhood home or a wedding venue, even a street people used to go shopping on, sometimes they want to go back to. But all of this kind of comes back to the individual again and stimulating happy memories. And then it's kind of amazing the threads that are pulled. and then these stories come bubbling to the surface, and then before you know it, you've got a room full of people sharing these stories, socially engaged and interacting, and all of that is about nurturing the relationships, you know, between that group of people.
Okay, thanks. A question for you, Lucy, and this is a question from me that I have, partly because when we initially wrote some articles about Zipline, you know, with our research, we noticed that your parent company, or maybe an associated company, is Rated App, which is very much based around understanding consumer experience and recording that and sharing it back to the business owner, I suppose, to understand the quality of their service. I mean, how much would Rated App play into the Zipline offering?
Yeah, absolutely. So Rate It is still a core component of our offering. Zipline was actually born out of Rate It, worked very closely with one of our customers at the time, St. Vincent's, to help them respond to the challenges of the pandemic, which is how Zipline was created. But we still very much use the Rate It component for being able to measure resident or visitor feedback in an aged care organisation. So you can use those kiosks or surveys to be able to monitor that. And once you can monitor and measure it, you see what areas you can improve. Can also start to use it to track kind of the trends in visitor management. So trends in visitation. So you can start to see if there's some residents who might not have that many visitors. So use that to implement programs where you might have volunteers who come and visit them, which has been something that's been a good thing to come out of the back of using Rate It for that purpose. I might hand over to Kerryn, who can chat a little bit about how they're using it as well.
Yeah, great. We use Rate It at the moment for our contact tracing reports. So it's really good for reporting. So anything that we have in Zipline in terms of a check-in flow, we'll be able to get out in the reporting through Rate It. We have used it to try and understand a ratio of visitors into a facility to try and predict how much PPE we might need during an outbreak, and we've got visitors coming. So all of those analytics, like Lucy was saying, around how many visitors you have coming to a facility and to a site, it's really good to have that on hand whenever you need it and whenever the questions come up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting. I mean, there's a lot of discussion around data with respect to not just aged care, any business, and the importance of collating, I suppose, the importance of quality data that goes in to then allow you to make predictive decisions with respect to your business. I mean, you've just said there that you're able to potentially estimate, you know, PPE usage, and I mean, over time, that's going to give you a fairly interesting set of numbers to look back on.
Yeah.
We're getting sort of close to our time. We try to keep these around 40 minutes. We're just a bit over that now. If there's any final questions, type them into the box. But just a reminder for everybody who's on the call, and you know, these sessions are available afterwards as a video on Inside Aging. So feel free to share that video around if you're a facility manager or a procurement manager, and you're thinking this can help our business. You know, these sessions can be shared and perhaps help to understand these solutions. So we might finish up now. I'll just say a quick thank you to our presenters, especially the providers, Jamie and Kerryn. You've given up your time here to come in and share a little bit about how these solutions have worked, and you've taken the questions without much notice. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks, Colin and Lucy. I appreciate you taking the time. And to everybody else on the call, we hope to see you again soon at another one of these sessions. Goodbye.